That looks innocent enough, doesn't it? Lots of young people hitchhike. Seems like a good way to get from one place to another. But sometimes there are dangers involved that never meet the eye. Let's take the case of Jimmy Barnes. Jimmy played baseball all afternoon, and he didn't feel like walking home, so he decided to thumb a ride. He'd done it 100 times before, and he didn't think anything was unusual when the driver struck up a friendly conversation. In fact, he seemed like a real nice guy. He asked Jimmy if he played baseball in the park often. Jimmy told him they practiced 3 times a week and played a rival group on Friday afternoon. The stranger was a good listener, too, and it only seemed minutes before they pulled up in front of Jimmy's house. When Jimmy got out, the stranger gave him a friendly pat. Then he told him he'd see him again, as he always drove by the park on his way home. Sure enough, the following day, when Jimmy finished playing ball, well, the man was there waiting. The companionship, the praise, the friendly attitude dispelled any misgivings Mike might have had about going with a stranger. He probably never realized until too late that he was riding in the shadow of death. But sometime that evening, Mike Merrick traded his life for a newspaper headline.
Mama.
Who's this?
It's Wayne.
Yes, this is Mama, baby.
Mama?
Huh?
I killed Dean.
Wayne?
Ma'am?
What are you doing?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, God. Where are you?
It's alright.
Wayne?
It's alright. It's alright.
Where are you?
I'm out of his warehouse.
Where?
Out at that warehouse he keeps.
Can I come out there?
Yeah, yes. No.
It's on the Highlands Park.
She can't. No, you can't come. I'm with the police, Mama.
Henley told police he killed 33-year-old Dean Allen Corrl during a party at Corrl's house. Henley said Corrl had threatened him with a pistol and a knife, trying to force him into sexual acts. Henley said Corrl bragged about the other murders.
How would you classify this series of crimes?
Just like I said a while ago, a hell of a sadistic type of a clown that'd pull something like this.
And you think most of these victims are young boys?
I'm pretty reasonably sure they are. The reports that we have, missing persons, are all a bunch of kids, 13, 14, 15 years old.
The death site and the grave site itself appears tragic enough, but do you think many of them went under any torture?
Well, when you're fooling with a nut like this, that's a pervert, you can expect most anything. Or they use instruments and a rack and so forth for their sex acts.
So the digging operation ceased for that night. Now the public knew 8 bodies had been found in this shed, but this was just beginning, and that became evident the following day. Thursday, lawmen returned to the grave site. Shovels again dug into the soil in the 12 by 30 shed. The death count started rising. There was another body, and still another, and another. When the digging was finally completed in this shed, 17 bodies had been recovered. According to the owners of the boat storage, Dean Corrl had always been prompt in paying his rent on this boat stall, which he had for nearly 3 years. Recently, he had been politely asking the owners if they didn't have another stall for rent. He said his was getting too crowded. 17 bodies, shocking, terrifying, and yet there were still more to be found.
People watched in horror as the police uncovered body after body in Dean Corrl's rented boat shed. One searcher complained that the whole floor of the shed was covered with bodies. Another detective said, "It's worse than a plane crash." One of the bodies recovered was one of the detective's missing nephews.
Police said the parents of 2 of the victims had received calls from them asking for money shortly before they disappeared. One had been missing for 2 years. A Houston homicide detective says the torture murders were the work of a maniac.
Many items were also discovered in the storage locker, such as bicycles, shoes, watches, along with sacks of lime. It was soon discovered that a popular neighbor, known as the Candy Man, because he operated his family's pecan candy factory, was the person responsible for the many disappearances. His name was Dean Corrl. Him and 2 teenage accomplices lured neighborhood children to his apartment with promises of drugs and alcohol. Some of the victims were lured from public swimming pools, driving education classes, or just snatched off the street as they rode their bikes around the neighborhood. Once they became incapacitated from the drug use, they woke up to find themselves naked, gagged, and handcuffed to a sheet of plywood, where they were sodomized and sadistically tortured. When all 3 killers became tired of torturing their victims, they strangled them before wrapping their bodies in plastic and burying them in different places around the neighborhood.
Really? Yeah, you can smell it.
Oh, I don't know.
That's a responsibility to
What?
Yeah, well, that's all you know. Yeah, I am. I look around and I see white and the only black in the crowd.
While refusing to be filmed, Henley was still quite talkative.
Why were they buried here?
Dean Corrl decided he wanted to have sex with them. Didn't want to let him go, so he killed him, brought him out here and buried him.
Why here, Wayne?
Carrying this around with you for a long time. I mean, didn't you almost crack several times?
Yeah.
How come this time?
This time, I just haven't felt like I was going to be able to hold my sanity much longer.
What provoked you that night for you to decide to tell it all?
I just think I owe these people this much to let them know what's happened to their boys.
How do you feel about it now?
Some of the facial expressions on the bodies had their mouth outstretched wide as if still trying to grasp for air.
The trail of graves stretched into the piney woods of East Texas near Sam Rayburn Lake, not too far from Lufkin. Henley told lawmen that he helped Corrl bury more victims in this area. At this time, 18-year-old David Brooks of Houston was also in custody as a suspect. Henley pointed to one spot and said, "There are 2 bodies here, but only one was uncovered." So Henley said, "That means there are 2 at the other site." After killing a rattlesnake, lawmen and newsmen moved cautiously through the heavy brush to the next location. Again, the shovels dug in, and Henley decided to start talking again also.
Now, these just some boys that he picked up, or I helped him get, rather. And he raped them, ended up killing them, brought them down here and buried them.
What part did you play in that?
I helped him pick them.
What part did you play in any of the killing, or did you?
No comment.
Wayne, this has been going on for some time, hasn't it?
Everybody dropping that kind of credit card in? No. A year ago last winter.
That's when you got into it?
Yes.
Now, you know, or you think you know, that maybe he was involved in this more than a year ago, right?
I know.
In what way do you know?
I was told.
By him?
By him. By David Brooks.
Now, David Brooks is another person who has been named. Now, what role did he play in all of this?
Same as mine.
The digging at the second spot produced only one more body before lawmen decided to call a halt for the night. They were to return the next morning, and they would uncover 2 more victims. That meant one Henley didn't know about. In other words, how many others could have been killed before Henley or Brooks became a part of all of this? It was possible, Henley said, that Corrl had other young men working for him in the past, using them to procure boys for his sexual fantasies, using them to pimp for him, and then later killing them just as he started to murder Henley. There could be dozens of other bodies, and the only man who could possibly tell the entire grisly story was Dean Corrl, and he was dead.
The search for more victims shifted from Houston to the piney woods of East Texas. 17-year-old Elmer Wayne Henley led officers to the shores of Lake Sam Rayburn and down a narrow clay road where lawmen started digging. Henley pointed out another site 200 yards away, and other officers dug there too. Both sites yielded bodies. When asked who he thought the victims were, young Henley said just some boys. He did not know their names. Henley led officers to 2 more graves, and 2 more bodies were found, and then he said he did not know of any more bodies buried at the lake. But San Augustine Sheriff John Hoyt says he has a feeling there may be more. But after 4 bodies had been found, officers left the piney woods, driving the 150 miles southward to the Texas coast, to the little town of High Island, where Wayne Henley says there are bodies scattered all over.
The case made international headlines. This included Pope Paul VI offering prayers to the families of the victims. Even the New York Times sent their famous reporter, the author of the bestseller In Cold Blood, Truman Capote, to Houston, Texas to report on the crime.
Henley wouldn't identify the Lake Sam Rayburn victims, but he did say they were all from the Houston area. Then the grisly tale unfolded even further. Henley pointed the grim-faced policeman toward the community of High Island, about 60 miles east of Houston, near the Gulf Coast. Digging started here early this afternoon. Searchers are confronted with a toll of victims that seems to grow every hour, and they have no idea when it will stop growing. Phil Reynolds, Channel 8 News on the Move, near High Island on the Gulf Coast.
Yesterday, the trail of graves took lawmen and newsmen to the southeast of Houston. Henley and Brooks said there were more bodies buried along the Gulf of Mexico. By now, the scene was becoming all too familiar. Shovels digging into dirt and yielding bodies. Heavy equipment was called in to assist in the recovery operations. Since there were few landmarks along the beach, Henley was having some trouble recalling the graves, but his directions did uncover more human remains. The white of lime mixed with the red of blood, bones, bits of flesh, again the undescribable smell of a decayed human body. The operations moved down the beach. At one point it stopped beside this camper. A Beaumont family out to spend a quiet day along the Gulf learned that they were within 10 feet of another victim. As the digging started and revealed the remains of still another body, the family packed up their camper. Yes, they had heard about the mass killings, but to learn that they were at the same spot where a teenage boy had been buried under 2 feet of sand. The Beaumont couple and their son headed for home.
Open it up.
How do you feel, Henley? Come here, Wayne.
It's Henley. Mrs. Henley is the mother.
A happy little old boy, usually. He's close to his family. He's always loved people. He tries to take care of his brothers. He didn't want none of them to have to drop out of school. I don't know what, he's just a little 17-year-old boy that was close to his family. That's all I know.
Do you believe your son did any of this?
No, sir. Wayne's not that kind of person. Wayne loved too deep and too much.
17-year-old Elmer Wayne Henley, who has been charged along with another youth with murder, is being kept in isolation in a Houston jail because of reported threats on his life by prisoners. Henley has said publicly he shot and killed Dean Corrl during a party for young boys at Corrl's home. Corrl is alleged to have done most of the killing, while Henley and 18-year-old David Brooks are charged with procuring young boys for him and committing some of the murders themselves.
Elmer Wayne Henley and David Brooks sit in the sun on a Gulf Coast beach near the small town of High Island, east of Houston. They have brought lawmen here to search for more bodies. 21 bodies have been found so far in Houston and at Lake Sam Rayburn. Big 2 newsman Jack Cato and cameraman Phil Lauder are on the scene as lawmen and jail trustees dig for bodies. Newsman Cato describes the scene as it unfolds before him.
This is the second location that trustees from the Houston jail and a couple of deputy sheriffs have dug up. 4 locations after the first one, 3 more possibly after this one. The group of the 2 prisoners and Houston police and deputy sheriffs are on down another 50 feet looking for the next 2 locations. This is just 30 feet from the Gulf. Possibly the shoreline was a little higher or a little more shallow when these bodies are put out here, but there's no doubt the first one in a plastic sack and remains in this one that it is actually a body that was left here on the beach at High Island.
I don't think we have more than one in this hole. I see. But is there any doubt that this is a body? No doubt. There's a skull and the jawbone and everything. Not any doubt at all.
The words of the police chief offered little consolation to the families of the victims in the mass murders. The chief did say his department and other law enforcement agencies are continuing their investigation. There will be more digging for graves, and there will be more grief as additional victims are identified. George Lewis, NBC News, Houston.
The body of 15-year-old William Ray Lawrence was found Thursday at Lake Sam Rayburn.
While officers were digging for more bodies at High Island, funeral services were being held for Lawrence in Houston. His father, Horace James Lawrence, said Billy had written a letter in June saying he had decided to go to Austin. The father never reported Billy missing because he thought his son was playing in a music group in Austin. 18-year-old David Brooks has been charged with the murder of Billy Lawrence.
I wonder to what extent you could fall if you turned your back entirely upon God. If you denied Him, I wonder where you might land and the things that you might do. A 17-year-old boy, just 17 years of age. No one would have ever thought that a 17-year-old boy could have done the things that this 17-year-old boy did.
Because authorities were convinced that there was no crime, believing that the disappearances were nothing more than runaways, they refused to investigate. However, many of the Houston, Texas parents of missing children who vanished suspected something more sinister was taking place. Some of the children disappeared wearing no more than a bathing suit.
Today, the father of one of the dead boys showed up at police headquarters to ask David Brooks how his son died and if he suffered much pain. He was told he may be allowed to meet with Brooks in private at a later date. His son disappeared in December 1971 following an evening church service he attended.
I feel animosity, I really do. After all, what person wouldn't feel some animosity? But the mother of this boy, Henley, I know that she's going through probably the same things we are, and people shouldn't try to condemn the mother for what the son has done. Although my animosity, I'm deeply grieved, and I have great animosity of what I'd like to do, but yet I go back that the vengeance no vengeance. Strictly let God do it. Let God take His own vengeance. These boys have a conscience they have to go through. These boys have to meet God someday, and someday I'll meet my son in heaven.
Hillegeist, Hillgiest. It's Fred Hillegeist and Dorothy Hillegeist.
It goes out to them. Our search has come to an end. I know that time will...
What we're doing now, some of the things that we're doing.
I'd say really right now, I think that she has a greater cross to bear than I have. Her boy is alive. I don't know what his destiny will be after this, but I'm sure that whatever his punishment in himself is more than I don't think anybody could ever do to a person than I'm sure all these faces of these friends that he lured into this situation will loom before him. But I can't, like I said, I feel sorry for them. I think she's got the heavier cross now.
Most of the 27 victims live on the same street as Wayne, attend the same junior high school, and know Wayne Henley all their lives, until he invites them to Dean's house for beer and poker. Although Wayne wants no part in the homosexual rapes, he joins more and more in the slow torture and sadistic killing of his friends.
What are you doing with that light?
Inside Dean's house,
The naked victims are handcuffed to this plywood board at gunpoint. The floor is covered with vinyl sheets to catch their blood. The stereo is turned up to drown out their screams. The horrified boys see Dean get undressed and hope it's only rape. Then they see Wayne take out the hunting knife.
Oh, Corrl raped them. He did whatever he wanted to. And they had an electric motor with a long wire attached. They'd touch it to their testicles just to see what they'd do. Whichever one of you beats the other one to death, I'll let the other one go. So they lay there all day and beat on each other with one hand on this board. And then when they came in at night, they killed them.
One summer night in 1973, Dean Corrl suddenly tries to rape and murder Wayne on their torture board.
Are you guilty of killing anyone at all?
Am I guilty of killing anyone at all? No, I'm not. Unless you could say Dean Corrl was a killing, I defended myself.